Well, good evening, everyone. Is this live? Are we on? Excellent. We are on. Well, thank you very much to everyone who has made it here today. And thank you to everyone who is tuning in on the live stream. We are here for the launch of the third SyndicateRoom 28 fund. And my name is Dan McCrum. I'm editor of FT Alphaville. And I'm here to hopefully talk us through proceedings and just say a few words as well about what an exciting environment we have for investing in startups and the entire VC and early stage funding ecosystem at the moment in the UK, both and in Europe. And what I wanted to do was just throw out a few numbers at you first, just to give you a sense of sort of the scale of what we're seeing and we're writing about on a daily basis. And then also I just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of the trends and sort of the things that we see, particularly on the fintech side of things, that maybe I hope give a sense of why investing in this space and why there is so much money being thrown at it and what's so exciting right now. But in terms of where we are, I mean, last year was one of the biggest years on record for VC investing. In Europe, I think we had $19 billion invested across the continent. And it's also one of the things you might find surprising is Europe has been a better market for IPOs of tech companies. These are companies which are actually getting to that final stage at a faster rate in the States. In the last 5 years, there have been more European tech IPOs than there have in the States. I think it's about double the number. And we're seeing the number of unicorns, it's a little bit disputed. It depends who's counting in Europe, but I think we're looking at sort of 30 or 40 across Europe. And we're seeing some of those come to market now, for instance, with the launch of Funding Circle, which could be valued at about 2 billion. And we're also seeing a number of homegrown unicorns stepping up. I mean, I think the largest one we saw last year was TransferWise. Its Series E, it raised £238 million, valuing it at 1.6 billion. And that was the biggest in the fintech universe overall. We had about 2.7 billion euros invested across Europe in fintech, and almost that's out of 2,500 VC deals in fintech in the last 5 years. So it's this incredible space where there is so much happening. And I thought one of the most interesting perspectives that we've come across sort of as we write about day to day is why is this happening? We're seeing sort of the dismantling of the existing financial institutions. And we hear a lot about why the tech is enabling this, because obviously it's much easier to start a company these days. It's much cheaper. You just need sort of 1 or 2 people. You can rent space in the cloud. You can buy the software that you need very cheaply, and you can just get going. You don't need a lot of capital to start. But I think what many people don't appreciate is sort of one of the cultural reasons why this is happening. You know, we had the crisis and we had the banks which exposed all the problems with this. But I think one thing which happens is you have, in this country, very large institutions which spend a lot of money recruiting the brightest, the best, and the smartest sort of young grads and go-getters that they can find. And they sell them on this sort of image of, it's almost like if you look at a brochure, it's the United Colours of Benetton that they're going to turn up in, this wonderful, forward-thinking bank. And then they turn up and they get put in a small cubicle and they get given no responsibility and told they must do exactly what they're told, and maybe a few years down the line, they might get some responsibility. And I think we've heard this story more than once. What's happening is these people are frustrated, going home, putting up on the wall of their garage or their bedroom. People don't have garages in London, but putting up on the wall of their bedroom, sort of the entire bank's business model, breaking it down from bit to bit to bit. And then what they do is they look at the bit they know and they say, that little bit there, that's the one which I'm going to take, I'm going to do better and cheaper, and I'm going to destroy your business. And I think we've seen this again and again, and so you see it with some of the unicorns. I mean, so we've got Revolut as well as TransferWise taking on payments. We've got Klarna, Swedish, which is taking on sort of mobile payments and shopping. And then we've also got Monzo, which a lot of people think of as a challenger bank, whereas I think is actually more of, it's better understood, it's basically a price comparison website which looks like a bank. And that gets to the heart of the second big thing in how fintech is going to slowly sort of destroy these established businesses. I think you see this with a great example is Habito, another UK company. It's an online mortgage broker, which is raised about £80 million last year, I think, in its Series B. And what they're doing is a very simple thing. They're just saying, we can get you the cheapest mortgage. And they have clever algorithms, which, as I understand it, you basically, once they know who you are, they will just keep checking for your cheapest mortgage, and then they'll let you know, and you can go and buy it. And what that does is that destroys the brands of the banks. And there are all sorts of businesses where all that really matters is this is a simple product, it's a mortgage, it lasts this long, and this is the cost. And all the money that banks are spending on businesses, on branding, all of that goes away when you just have a battle of computers fighting over which is the cheapest loan and what's the easiest way to find it. So I think that's where we are. I think so that brings us to, that's where we are, what we are seeing in fintech. We're seeing this incredible opportunity. And I think that's probably enough from me, and we should move on with the main purpose of the evening. So now we're going to watch a video, I believe, on Fund 28.
They say diversification is the only free lunch in finance. But diversification is difficult. Why? Because you need to know your sector as well as diversify your portfolio. And these are two competing requirements. So, what level of diversification is needed? How many investments need to be made? Well, perhaps there's an answer. At least 28 investments. That was definitely the conclusion made by Intelligent Partnership and Nesta in their 20...
I'm Michael O'Rourke, CEO of Ravana Therapeutics. Every 5 seconds, someone in the world goes blind. In the UK, 100 people a day start to lose their eyesight because of serious deterioration of a conditions, many known as different macular degeneration conditions or glaucoma. Unfortunately, most of these conditions are treated with frequent injections into the eye, which can often be uncomfortable, or with daily eye drops, but most people do not know how to use eye drops successfully. About 90% of patients cannot use eye drops. Ravana Therapeutics are developing biodegradable implants into the eye that can sustain the release of a drug for 4, 5, 6 months or even longer. And it's a $25 billion market that we're currently going to be able to compete in. So who are Ravana? Ravana is a startup out of Queen's University in Belfast, but we also have an international presence. I'm actually based in Tampa, Florida, so we do have access both to the US market and to the European markets. What makes it special? We have great technology that we believe has several competitive advantages over anyone else in the market, but we also have a great team, a strong board, passionate team, and a scientific advisory board that also includes the ex-CMO, Chief Medical Officer of Bausch & Lomb worldwide. Last year we raised £1.2 million. Since then, we've achieved a strategic collaboration with a major pharmaceutical company. We've already achieved milestone 1 with them by taking their drug into our technology. We've progressed the team, we've strengthened their operations, and we've enhanced their IP. We're looking now to raise a Series A of around £6 million. With that, it will allow us to develop our own internal therapeutic. It will allow us to expand our proof of concept technology, which will be, we believe, attractive to major pharmaceutical companies. It will allow us to also strengthen our operations. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Yusuf. I'm a medical doctor and the co-founder at Quit Genius, a mobile app that delivers personalized therapy to help people quit smoking. So why smoking? Well, it's still the single biggest cause of preventable deaths around the world, with a market in US dollars per year. But the really crazy part is that over 70% of smokers actively want to quit, yet only 3% are actually successful. Quit Genius works by delivering a personalized journey of animated videos, interactive exercises, and audio sessions, which all come together to change the way a user thinks about smoking. What's more, every smoker is different, and so interaction, QuitGenius learns more about the user to better suit them. Founding and selling my first tech business at the age of 14. We've raised $2 million from Merck, Y Combinator, and other Silicon Valley heavyweights. And last year, we won the National Pitch at Palace Awards. Our technology has been peer-reviewed in 3 research papers. But the number I'd like to share is that in the past year, we've already helped tens of thousands of people quit smoking. We've done it for smoking, which means we can do it for other mental health conditions and addictions. I joined medical school to make an impact on the lives of thousands, and I left to make an impact on the lives of millions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sheridan from Allergy. So 11 years ago, a pair of Cambridge researchers started developing a treatment. They met a management consultant looking for a way out with zero pharma experience, which they thought was a good thing. But I did make up for my experience with hunger, and I saw the size of this opportunity. Peanut allergy is a very severe disease, and although we never really heard of it at school, it now affects around 2% of children in Europe and the US. And it's a very severe problem. If anybody in this room has a child with peanut allergy, or as I've heard earlier, a wife and possibly 2 children with peanut allergy, you'll empathize with the anxiety that this causes. You'll be carrying EpiPens, you'll be constantly reading labels and asking and double checking what's in this food. Are you really sure? And when your child starts to go away, who's looking after them? Are they going to be as diligent as you? Will they know what to do when they suffer a reaction? And it gets even worse when they start to go away, go to school or go to university. These times cause great anxiety. So over the past few years, we've turned this from an academic project into a spin-out company. We've raised funding, built a team, and developed a drug. And I'm proud to say that we've now treated our 160th patient at the clinic in Cambridge, and we're achieving an unbelievable 97% success rate. So building on the success, what we need to do now is set up our manufacturing. We've hired a US-based CEO to help us raise the funding that we need to get through the clinical trial and eventual IPO in order to make this treatment available worldwide. So 11 years in the making. We've got a few years still to go, and hopefully peanut allergy will be a problem solved. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And now I'd like to ask James Shaw to come and join me up here. So James, you are the Chief Investment Officer for Fund 28 and at SyndicateRoom. So let's talk about the fund. What exactly is it?
So it's a passive fund. So we were looking at opportunities within the market for investors for direct investment, and that's what the platform provides. But there was nothing for the fund, nothing available in a fund format that we felt comfortable about putting onto the platform. So we designed and developed the first passive fund. So investments are selected effectively by an algorithm driven by investor demand, and that gives investors the first time that they can actually access a broad diversified portfolio from a single investment.
I mean, I think you might have to break that down a bit for us because, we see a lot of passive funds in the world. I mean, trillions of dollars are invested, but typically those follow an index. So you can invest in 100 tracker funds, and you're going to get a bit of each of those 100. But so what does it mean in this case? Because, these sorts of investments aren't listed anywhere. So where do they come from, and what's the...
The FTSE 100 is a good example of an index that is basically, it's still an algorithm. It's a set of rules that select investments from a known pot. Okay, the market changes, then become a new companies list and other companies delist, but in essence you have a fixed set of investments that are available. And the algorithm looks at market capitalization and uses that as one of the key factors to select the top 100. So we said, well, can we do something similar in the early stage space? Well, we don't have a market and access to every single private equity deal. So we said, well, let's look at our opportunities. And rather than taking what we'd see as sort of a bulk approach, so you take a market in front of you and then apply an algorithm, we said, well, why don't we do it in a linear fashion? So we have investment opportunities becoming available to us, i.e. sort of listing, on our website. They go on, and if the investment demand is high, then we would take a position in those companies. If the investment appetite is low or nothing, then the fund wouldn't actually take a position in that. So rather than taking a bulk approach, we've taken a more linear approach.
And you said this is a passive fund, so you don't have to make any decisions. So where's the demand coming from that is sort of guiding these?
So our website allows sophisticated investors and high net worth individuals to go online for free. They can select whichever investments they wish to make, and they can build up their own portfolio at their own desire. We have investors that have registered and not done anything for 5 years, and they're obviously waiting for something. We have other investors that within a few days or even hours or even minutes are starting to build up their portfolios. That investor demand, i.e. which investors are investing into which businesses, is what we use. And so the investment appetite of those investors is the metric that we use to define how much to invest from the fund.
Okay, so you're essentially piggybacking on the demand from the people who are looking at these companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like momentum trading.
Oh, I think we need to give you a mic there,
Sorry,
possibly.
is it not working? Okay.
Is that better? Excellent.
Yeah, so it is in essence piggybacking on their demand, and one would argue it's a similar approach to the FTSE 100. If demand is high for a specific stock within the index, its market capitalization increases, and therefore it would enter the 100. If its demand is low, it drops away and eventually would drop out of the 100.
And the number 28, where does that come from?
So it was known for a long time that from sort of angel investing that if you get a sort of reasonable size portfolio, reasonable being sort of 30, something like that plus, but that was anecdotal. But we knew that there was a sort of portfolio play in angel investing. What we looked at was that the investment research by Intelligent Partnership and based on the research from Nesta, which looked at angel investing, siding with the angels 2009 and 2012. I think they've done a revision in 2015 as well. But they looked at the investment appetite and behaviors of the angel investors and their performance. Intelligent Partnership then said, well, look, what does this mean? So if I'm investing, how many investments would I need to get before I get a certain statistical chance of getting one of these sort of, hopefully a section of the types of companies we're in that goes really, really well and scales. And so what they did is
your chance of a unicorn, is that what
exactly.
it's?
So it's looking at companies that give 10x plus, so 10 times return at least of the investment. And what they discovered was that from just a statistical analysis was that if you want a 95% chance of having at least one of these in your portfolio, you needed an investment portfolio of at least 28. And it was selected off the investments that were in front of them, and the number is sort of useful, but it's not specifically your world is going to change if you go from 27 to 28. What it gave us was the sort of statistical proof that you need to be up the higher end of these portfolios to be able to have that type of statistical confidence. If you're one or two investments, you're running a lot higher risk of obviously failure, but if it goes well, then you get a lot higher returns. So it's finding that balance.
I see, and in terms of sort of the returns that you might want to get, I mean, if you get 10, well, you might hope, but that point about you've got a 95% chance of getting 10 times your money
in one,
but you do need 28 times if you're going to get it all back, right?
Yeah. So what it's looking at is, on average, in the same way that if you take an index of a stock market rather than a specific stock, if you can find the one stock in there that does exceptionally well, you're obviously going to outperform the market, and that's what active investors are doing day in, day out. They're trying to trawl through the market to find those one or two that do really well. What you're doing with the sort of portfolio play is to accept that your overall return is going to be less than if you picked one or two absolute flyaway successes, but you're balancing that with hopefully increasing your chances of achieving that slightly lower return. We're aiming to get something in the order of 20% per annum, so we would like to get ourselves towards the sort of angel blended angel returns. We accept that we might not get to that, but the idea is around trying to get to that level rather than trying to pick one or two that does do the 10x, which is the traditional approach.
And in terms of your job, I mean, chief investment officer, but surely the algorithm is doing the work here.
Yeah.
So what's your job?
So I've landed a job. I've landed a job that doesn't have any work. So I'm chief investment officer of SyndicateRoom as a whole. So we have many other things that are going on. The active investment selections, the investment selection for those active investments that go onto the platform. I also work around looking at new products, so we design new products in-house, and I manage the investment team, so we're looking at all the analysts and associates that process the deals and select those in companies. So before you lose me at my job, I do work.
And what sort of companies are we talking about here? I mean, you've got 2 funds already.
Yeah.
So what sort of companies have you invested in?
So the 2016 fund invested in 32 companies across 10 sectors, and the first 3 and the next 2 companies you're going to hear from tonight were all in the original portfolio. Fund 28 2017 has already made 17 investments, and it only launched in April, so we're already well on track to develop that same sort of breadth. And the companies range from all sorts of different types of sectors and stages, as well as the industries that they're also, solutions and problems they're trying to solve.
I mean, are there some good examples? I mean, what sort of
So-
companies
so
have you
I-
been sort of most sort of surprised by? Or
So I have 3 kids. So if you ask me to pick which child I like the most, I'm obviously not gonna do that, and I'll treat that the same way with the portfolio. There are specific companies in there that maybe align to more what I personally enjoy or would like to sort of work in. I historically worked in renewable energy, so I was part of a battery technology for a car. So Ingenie is obviously something that I have an affinity to because I understand that. But from a general perspective, I've been exceptionally happy with the breadth of companies that are in there, the growth that they've already experienced. As we can see tonight, a number of those businesses are going on to do amazing things. So yeah, I shan't pick a child.
And what sort of size of company are we talking about, and what sort of investments are they taking? I mean,
So on the platform, we do normally around sort of 250k rounds to maybe 3, 4, 5 million pound rounds. And as a combined sort of group, we'll invest anywhere from 100k if our investors like it, up to something like 700-800k on average. We have raised more than that. We've raised 3.1 into a business, 2.3 into other businesses from our network, but that's the normal sort of size of investment. The size of company, we've had valuations down in the sort of 750k mark pre-money, right the way up to many millions, so multiple tens of millions. So yeah, it's pretty broad.
right. And in terms of the process of choosing them, I mean, with a passive sort of index, you tend to get a spread, but with here, it's a popularity contest. So what are you seeing in terms of the companies which do well with fundraising and those which don't? I mean, what really attracts the investors to these?
So it's a really good question. I mean, we historically we've done around a third life sciences and healthcare, around a third technology, hardware and software, etc., and about a third other, including movies like aircraft, consumer goods, all sorts of different things. And that sort of makeup is actually it's moved around. The percentage has moved around, but in essence, that kind of split has retained throughout the whole time. What we found is that the investors are not just worried about money. So there is this sort of mindset that people that invest in banking and so on and so forth are just all they care about is money and returns, etc. Now that's really, really important. It is absolutely really important. But the companies that do really well are the ones that have a very succinct and clear story and goal. So they're trying to solve something, and then that sits within a market that's clearly defined and has a clear achievable, potentially achievable success. So the companies that do really well are those that actually pull on both the financial heartstrings or appeal to those investors on that side, as well as actually delivering things. So we're talking about people quitting smoking and those being able to
There's
get
a sense of impact investing.
yeah,
here.
the impact thing, and I think social impact investing is an interesting one that has allowed people to invest on the social side, but still kind of want to make money. So I think it's a nice term that's been created. But in essence, I think those that really do well on the platform are actually sort of social impact in the sense that they are delivering real value and changing people's lives. I kind of I sometimes use the analogy that if you're down the pub or having dinner or whatever, and you say, I've invested in something in it and it's helping childbirth mortality or something. It's such not noble, but it's such a specific and understandable thing to kind of be trying to, help. If you just say that you're trying to, I don't know, I shan't pick another type of company that you might imply it's not quite as a noble a drive, but in essence, being able to explain that you're actually delivering good is quite a nice thing for people to be able to discuss. If I've invested in a bond that's made 4%, it's not particularly a good story down the pub or having dinner. So.
And I'd be interested in who you're competing with as well, or who the investors would be competing with, because I talked about the billions of dollars that we're seeing being poured into sort of startups, and not all of that filters down to sort of the seed stage. But there's a lot of professional companies there now. You've got a lot of high net worth angel investors. So who's it that you're competing against, sort of for these investments?
So we used to sort of compete with angel clubs. So you have not compete, but angel investment clubs were the sort of traditional way of doing this. A lot of those have evolved the way that they're doing this business now, and include us as a way for them to collect investment. I would say that you've got wealth managers as well that are now looking at this space, but what we try not to do as a business is to compete against those things. What we try to do is add value within an industry or a market or a demand and serve that demand. And what that allows us to do is then either infiltrate that market or beat that market. So actually we don't have tons of obvious competitors. What we end up doing is actually working alongside a lot of the established things. But in general, what we're finding is that the aggregation of retail money as direct as possible, so the ability to get to capital direct from retail, is a key driver within the wider market. So Hargreaves Lansdown has proven that that's been an unbelievable success story because they're getting access direct to retail to the investment products where they historically would have been through different intermediaries and paid this person, paid that person, paid this person, etc. And that's the sort of space that we want to move to.
Okay, great. And for anyone who wants to find out more?
Yeah, so it's live now on the website. So go to SyndicateRoom. You can get through to EIS funds or /Fund 28. Read the materials, investigate what we're doing, and hopefully, if it's of use to you, then invest.
Great. Well, thank you very much, James.
Thanks very much.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ian Johnson. I became the CEO of Ingenie in June of this year. Ingenie was founded in 2013 and last year enjoyed a successful fundraising event with the SyndicateRooms. So what does Ingenie do? Well, Ingenie are deploying a public network of electric vehicle rapid charging points. So you may have read recently that the government has announced a target to that by 2030, 50% of all new vehicle sales will be either electric or hybrid. But the revolution is already happening today. And in fact, last month, 1 in every 12 vehicles that were purchased in the UK were electric or hybrid. At the same time, the biggest reason given by drivers of vehicles in the UK as to why they haven't yet made the change to electric is because of the lack of a public charging network. So Ingenie are setting out to change this, and our ambition is to install over 1,500 rapid charge points over the next 3 and 4 years. To do this, and thanks to the fundraising, we have built an excellent delivery team where we've recruited some of the best business development managers and project delivery managers, both from inside the industry and from outside the industry. That team has helped us to land our first national deal, which will see us deliver over 400 rapid charge points across the UK starting in October. Ingenie's business model is very simple. We fund 100% of the upfront cost of installing the charging infrastructure. We fund 100% of the ongoing operational costs of running the system and serving the customer, which means that our commercial landlord partners can offer a charging solution for their customers, which drives footfall, at no cost to their business. Plus, we also pass on a share of the profitability from the site. So where will you see an Ingenie rapid charger? Well, Ingenie targets sites where there's high vehicle driving footfall and where the customer behaviour sees them spend between 20 and 60 minutes on the site. So you can all expect to see Ingenie deploying a rapid charger at supermarkets, restaurants, drive-through coffee shops and retail parks near you in the coming months. I'd like to finish on why are we doing this? Because beyond working in an exciting marketplace, very fast-moving marketplace, there's one common thread which runs through every member of the team and every member who joins our team over the last few months. And that is that we all want to give something back. I myself have two young daughters. Both of the girls will die 2 years earlier than they should do because of the air pollution that I expose them to by bringing them up in London. So this is how we give something back, and it's how we make a difference by accelerating our country's transition to a zero carbon future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adam, Chief Executive of Cambridge Nutraceuticals. I'm going to talk about Glynis. Glynis suffers from joint pain. She has fibromyalgia and MS. She says, I was like a crippled old lady. Some days, I could only get round the house on all fours. I was in so much pain, I was prescribed 6 bottles of morphine a week. Medicines didn't work. Inflammation took over her body. Glynis read about one of our products, Turmeric Plus, a powerful, natural, absorbable anti-inflammatory. She tried it. It did work. Searing and excruciating pain was replaced by a dull ache. She can use her hands again to grip, to put her socks on, to tie her laces. She walks again unaided. Her doctor, so impressed with the results, asked her for details for his wife's arthritis. She's a customer too. We're Cambridge Nutraceuticals. We sell clinically proven health supplements that improve lives. The $100 billion global market for health supplements needs fixing. Murky and often misleading marketing messages, myriad brands confuse and confound customers. We are different. We sell supplements as they should be sold, supplements that work. Supplements supported by research and results, supplements supported by science. We built ourselves for scale. We recruited a management team that combined has over 100 years of relevant experience, managed over 1,000 people, and worked at the top of billion-pound companies. We're configured to be big. And to get big, we'll repeat what's already worked on a small range of products, on a larger range of IP-rich products, to turn our tens of thousands of customers into hundreds of thousands, and then millions. Thank you.
And that just falls to me to say thank you very much for joining us here this evening, and thank you to everyone who joined on the live stream. Good night. Oh, and hang on. Oh, sorry, I completely forgot. No, we are going to have a Q&A first with James. My apologies. Yeah, no, you're nearly out the door. So please stay with us on the live stream.
I think we've got some questions from the online as well, but feel free, anyone here, to ask any questions.
28, I can see where 28 comes, because the common knowledge is that 98 or 97% of startups fail within 2 years. So that's where 28 comes from. So easy to understand. So, and that goes back to, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Dan.
Dan. Yeah. Dan already said if you want to break even, you need one that will get times 28, because all the rest will fail according to the statistics. So how does it work? Yes.
So you've got sort of rough statistics around 6 or 7 will go bust, and then you'll have between sort of 2 or 3 that might return 1 to 5 times, something like that, and then you'll get the 5 to plus return. So within the portfolio, it's not just all about that one investment that delivers 10x plus. It's around taking some of the losses, maybe 60% of them, 40, 50, 60% of them down to nothing. A body of them going between returning 1 to 5 times your money, and then some of them coming in at a very, very large return. So the blended return is aiming at the sort of 20%, including EIS. But you're absolutely right. On the face of it, it's difficult to work out the numbers, but...
Any more? Yeah, thanks for that. That was quite interesting. So what weight do you put on the exit timeline that your investments have? You mentioned how you sort of look at them generally. You've got like a 2, 3, 5 year timeline you expect them to be talking about?
So some investments, they concentrate on EIS, and a lot of the plans are sort of focused around 3 years and so on and so forth. With us, we as a platform and as a fund as well, we look probably in the 5 to 7 year horizon and maybe even longer. I think the reality is that you will be in that sort of order. It doesn't mean that some of those that had the 3 year horizon, they realize they're not going to get anywhere near that in a year or 2 years and actually end up collapsing. But we look at around the 5 to 7 year horizon. If you looked at, we actually, myself and Gonzalo were joking about this earlier in terms of predictions. So all forecasts are guaranteed to be wrong. You're either going to underestimate or overestimate. So if you look at the projected figures for a lot of companies, it is very, very difficult for them to be even remotely accurate. But what they can do is trying to give you a rational reason as to why they're going to move to, hopefully towards that growth. But we would normally look around the 5 to 7 year horizon, and the fund is structured to be in that 7 year cycle. So
I take it that the fund is aimed to be fully invested within the tax year.
Yeah, so the 2016 and 2017 funds were what's called HMRC approved funds. So they're a specific structure that requires them to be fully invested within 12 months, or at least 90% of it invested within 12 months. This fund, Fund 28.3, is an unapproved fund, so all the investments will be treated individually. So you'll get individual EIS certificates for each investment. That means that you would technically span 2 tax years. You're likely to span 2 tax years, but eligible investors may benefit from carryback, so you could potentially consolidate them within a single tax year. The traditional one of being an approved fund allows you to sit with a single tax certificate, so an EIS-5, covering all of the investments after all of them have been made and all of the underlying EIS-3s have been issued. This is the joy that we have to do. That's one of my jobs. But that allows you as an investor to know which tax year all of it will crystallize in. So the 2016 fund is named because it sits in the 16-17 tax year. The 17 is 17-18 tax year. So this one will be unapproved, so we'll split between tax years. May straddle 2 tax years, yeah. The question was why is it unapproved? So if Easter didn't fall in the greatest place for us for the 2017 fund, and we actually had a number of investors who came back from holiday and said, "Okay, cool, where are we at?" And we said, "We've been emailing and ringing you, and you've not paid." And they said, "Oh right, okay, I didn't realize I had to get it all in by a certain date." So we actually had demand that was unmet, and so we thought about how we could structure and capture that demand. So we've done it as an unapproved fund. We will almost certainly deliver another approved fund, launching sort of January, February time next year, and that we'd see that as continuing. And if we think that this interim fund or this sort of unapproved structure works as well, then we might take that on as a future product.
Yes, we have one. Well, we have 2. One about will the fund be deploying in companies all year round?
Will the fund be
deploying in companies all year round?
I sound like another job that I have to do is to try and make sure that the algorithm is deploying in the way that we're comfortable with. So making sure that it's not deploying at a rate that's too much and the portfolio is not large enough, or too slowly and it exceeds our 12-month cycle. Balancing that allows us to deploy within normally around 10 months for the approved structure. Now we'll effectively be having 2 funds deploying at the same time. So we'll have the original 2017, which has still got investments to be made, and we'll have the new fund, 28.3, starting in 2 weeks' time, and that deploying. So yeah, there'll be technically money from Fund 28 as a product all year round.
So does that mean there's sort of a hand on the tiller guiding the amount in order to sort of balance that across, depending on how much you're expecting to come in?
So we have a couple of ratios that we use, and we do analysis on historical investment performance in terms of deployment, not return, but we look at how money's going out. We also look at predictions around how the deal flow that's coming up, the cyclical nature of investment, which is not particularly cyclical on our site. We do have certain peaks and troughs, but we also monitor that. And then when the fund is raised, we do perform all that analysis and then set the metrics to allow the fund to invest. We monitor those, so we keep an oversight as to its rate of deployment, etc., and make sure that it still sits within what we think it should do. But in essence, no, we leave it going as long as it's. I try not to fix it unless it's broken.
And I think we've got one more from online.
Quick.
How will you know that all of the investments are EIS eligible?
So one of the requirements that the team does before every investment goes live is that we investigate the EIS claims of the business. So if they're SEIS, EIS or non-eligible, we look at the advanced assurance and do an internal check ourselves, and the company warrants basically that if they're going to run the round as EIS eligible, then it will qualify. Ongoing from the fund, we monitor the companies and have, agreements with the business that we have first veto over anything that might influence or affect EIS eligibility.
I just want to ask about the deployment timing. You said that there was an overlap between the 2017 and the 28.3, and then potentially between the 28.3 and the 2018 if that were to be launched. Does that mean that there's potential that those 2 funds could invest into the same company, and therefore if you're an investor in both funds, you may double invest in one company?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you do get that, and we have investors who actively put money into the fund, but then put money into the fund and then actively monitor the deal flow as well, and put top-ups into certain companies that they like. The 28.3 will not take any historical investments that have already done and already fully transacted, but there will be a period of time when the 17 portfolio will be not the same ratios, but will be into the same businesses. And again, as you say, 18 will overlap 3 as well.
Great. Well, I think that is all we have time for.
Sorry. we can ask.
And so thank you very much for that, James.
Thank you very much as well, hosting.
And thank you all for joining us and on the live stream. Thank you.